So, is Mzansi Scope invited to the premiere of Shakailembe? A, yes. B, yes. C, no. D, yes. I don't know, you can just pick.
I knew I was my favorite character. And I have a feeling he's gonna die.
Why do you think he's going to die?
I don't
Have you read some history somewhere? Nah, that's a nasty one. Okay.
Kill one.
That's what you mentioned. No,
Will you make one and watch one forever?
Kill one.
Yes.
And what, to never watch it again?
Yes. And then
From and defeat the common. Christ excellence inside my DNA. Divine elegance, resonant blessedness that hit the way.
What up, everyone? Welcome back to another one of Mzansi Scope. And today we are coming to you with the best, guys. The legend, filmmaker. I'm talking Yizo-Yizo, Zone 14, Isibaya, Shakailembe. There's still another one coming and another one and another one. And I'm introducing to you Mr. Angus Gibson. What a moment to be alive. How are you, Mr. Angus?
I am very well.
Yo, co-host, where do we start?
I don't even know. I'm starstruck a little bit right now. A little nervous as well. This is my first time. Coach, how are you feeling?
Oh, I'm nervous because, we've been waiting for this thing.
True.
Right?
True.
But we didn't know it would come like this soon.
Yeah.
We thought it was going to come like in years to come. But yeah, we're here now, co-host. What do you want to ask? The first question.
Oh, I have to start with the first question.
Yes, co-host.
Okay. I thought you were gonna start off with a young little intro joke or something
Yeah.
to lighten up the mood.
Oh, so Pop-Up says he looks like someone from Harry Potter. And then I'm going there, looking at the pictures. I see Lucius Malfoy.
Yeah.
I'm like, they look alike. He's right when he says you look like a character. I'm not sure if you have...
I tell you, and poor Pops said that I looked like the guy from Back to Future.
Oh,
Back to the Future. What?
Back to the Future.
Yeah, that was...
I know the character from Back to the Future, and they look alike with Lucius Malfoy.
yeah.
And then Mark G said you look like a character from... You could be like in Game of Thrones or something. He said something like that. Yes.
Yeah, no, I'll take all the characters, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, cool. So what do you want to jump on?
Okay, so for me, from my side, my first question is, we know that you've been in this industry for quite a long time, like since the 70s, 80s?
Since the 80s, yeah.
Since the 80s.
Beginning of the 80s.
Yeah, beginning of the 80s. So I just wanted to know a creative habit or mindset that you've always had that's helped you from then until now, because I feel like you're still making very relevant stories that inspire people and speak a lot to our South African audience.
I started out, I always wanted to do fiction, but circumstance in the beginning took me to documentary, which I enjoyed much more than I expected I would. I suppose because I'm interested in the real world. And I think my engagement with the real world has completely informed all of the fiction that I've made. So for me, if I make something about a fishmonger, I would like to think that if fishmongers watched it, they would think, yeah, that's my life, kind of thing. So I suppose an interest in the real world has driven me. And I suppose the other driver is to do things that haven't been done before. I suppose I don't want to repeat myself, and I don't want to repeat what other people have done. I'm sort of constantly in search of the fresh, I suppose. And I think those have been two sort of consistent things in my way I've gone forward, yeah.
You said something in one of the interviews, I could be wrong, like by the age 16 you didn't know who Mandela was. Do you think like when you did the documentary about Mandela, you were doing it for your younger self?
So in fact, many of the things I've done have not been things I've sort of chosen to do. I mean, it's not like I sort of grew up thinking, God, I want to make a film about Nelson Mandela. I was asked to join the film. And in fact, I had been working on a project on Soweto, on the history of Soweto for years. And I had just finished it and it had been broadcast in Britain. And then I was asked would I do the film on Nelson Mandela. And I thought, well, you know, I'm doing all these big kind of iconic black narratives. And I'm this sort of very white guy. And so in fact, when I was asked if I would do the Mandela film, I said no. And then I was doing another project and I was sort of supposed to be working with a person I won't name. But there was a point at which I thought, I do not want to work with this person. So I resigned from the project. And people on the Mandela project said, come on, please come and join us. And so then the first thing I did was I flew to the Bahamas and I stayed in this very big mansion on the sea, and Mandela stayed in another big mansion on the sea. And in the mornings, we did interviews. And in the afternoon, we would do our own thing. So I spent Christmas and New Year with him. And then I stayed with him sort of pretty much up until the inauguration. So it was that stretch before the first democratic elections. So it was an extraordinarily privileged view of South Africa from so literally right next to Nelson Mandela. I was in his houses, in his office, around him, in that moment in South Africa. But it wasn't something I thought, well, you know, I really want to do something on Nelson Mandela. And by that time, I did know who he was. Yeah.
And what was your experience of him? I mean, being in South Africa, knowing and then being with him in his space, getting to know him personally. What was your experience of Nelson Mandela?
I mean, I feel like I didn't get to know him. You know, he was about to become a president. It was clear. And so I think that sort of person is in a way, he's in a vulnerable position in terms of what he shares. And he's guarded. The worst possible time to actually make an autobiographical documentary. I had great respect for him. But it wasn't like I thought, this is my friend. No. I sort of, hung around with bodyguards, and they didn't feel like his friends either, I have to say. He's quite contrary to the sort of image of the man that goes into the kitchen and shakes, which he does, but that felt to me like a strategy, as opposed to something from his
His heart.
from his heart. I mean, I'm a little hard on him, but yeah, but I did not emerge from that project as the bosom buddy of Nelson Mandela. No.
Interesting. I think like let's take it back to the beginning of bomb production. It was found in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
And you have been working with Desiree and Bratibza
Yeah.
until he passed on. And like I just want to find out, like, as producers, how did you manage to stay together since then until now? Because a lot of productions, they crumble on the way. And I
Yeah.
feel like this is something which a lot of people can learn, because me, I'm fighting with my producer every day here. So I want to know, like, how do you keep it going?
I mean, Teboho. So I was part of a film collective called Free Filmmakers, which sort of operated in Rocky Street in Yeovil. And it was a group of, it was a sort of attempt at creating a non-racial space, first of all. So it was sort of black people and white people. It was basically a sort of collective of lefty filmmakers that weren't doing work for the SABC and that kind of thing. We're looking to do things that challenged what was going on in South Africa. And we had interns that came in. And I mean, my experience of black South Africans in that moment was that, especially with the move to the townships, there was sort of extraordinarily little access to cinema. So, you know, people of an older generation that had lived in the urban kind of ghettos like Sci-fi Town were extremely cinema literate. But with the move to the townships and less access to film, I mean, basically, you know, it felt like everybody of those generations basically saw kind of kung fu films at school, and that was about it, and had very little access to anything else. So the interns that came into Free Filmmakers invariably didn't have a passion for film because they just hadn't had access to it. They were coming in to get a job as opposed to being passionate. And Teboho just completely stood apart. You know, he had found a passion somehow. And in fact, he had book learning about film. So, you know, he could speak to me about the shadow play and last year's Marienbad, you know, for example, which is this sort of obscure French film, because he had read about it. And so that sort of, he stood completely apart. And then I realized that we shared a sensibility. We both have quite a dark vision, I suppose. We shared that. We liked similar films. You know, he had an ability to sort of create specificity in a scene that felt completely incredible. You know, I really admired. So I suppose there's the thing, is I admired him in many ways. And Desireé, I mean, at first it was the two of us, and when we were given the contract to produce Yizo-Yizo, we didn't have a producer. And the agent Muneen Lee put us together with Desiree. And she's a force, you know, she's hard not to admire her. One can fear her, but she's has an extraordinary range of abilities. So I suppose a mutual respect and admiration, I think, is the thing that is a key. And, you know, and in fact, I've witnessed friends of mine starting partnerships where there hasn't been that respect between them. It doesn't last. Yeah. That's my answer.
Okay. So you spoke about.
She had that, right?
Yeah. Producer, did you listen? Admiration.
And respect.
And respect. Yeah. So we spoke about you and Desiree and all of that, and collaboration as well. I think is one of the key things that you have used throughout your career.
Yeah.
So can you speak to me about collaboration? I mean, you've never shied away from speaking about how privileged you were in your interviews and just in general. How do you then collaborate with people and ensure that you're not taking up that space and just taking stories, but representing those stories well and representing the people as well?
Well, I collaborate with many different people. I mean, I collaborate with other privileged people as well. It's not like, so I think I'm a good listener. And in fact, that's my go-to. I'm much more, if I'm in a room of people and you're not interviewing me like this, I'm most likely to be quiet and to listen. So I think that's an attribute in terms of a collaboration. I think I do have a fundamental sort of confidence, so I don't feel vulnerable. You know, I can't say I don't have ego, but if somebody has an idea that is exciting for me, I embrace it. I don't feel I'm right all the time. And I think that is, you know, so I've quite often co-directed. I mean, the first person I co-directed with was the artist William Kentridge. And it, you know, we survived, we are still friends. We've been friends for, I don't know, between 30 and 40 years. So, in fact, all the people I've co-directed with, I've remained friendly with. I think that quite often, you know, those kind of experiences land up with people, you know, with relationships fragmenting rather than being cemented. And I have, yeah, everybody I've co-directed with, I've remained close to, yeah.
Wait, have you worked with David Croot? He's also an artist in Rose.
I know David Croot well. Well, I don't know him well, I know him.
Oh, yeah.
But he has a printmaking studio.
Yes.
So in fact, he gave a talk the other day with a friend of mine called Davy Bell, who's also an artist, which was actually a really great talk. David was great. So I know him, but not well. Yeah.
Okay,
You
so
want to tell the story?
no, not to the story for another day. So how do you navigate? Because I feel like as we're still growing as well, doing a business, we will want to know what it is to run a business and how to separate between creative and business responsibilities.
Well, let me just say right up front that it's been very advantageous for both myself and Teboho to have Desiree as a partner, because she shoulders the burden of the business as well as other burdens. But I mean, Bomb is an unusual company within the film world in South Africa. I think, in the sense that we employ a lot of people permanently. Most film companies kind of shrink right down, and then when a project comes in, they bring people onto the project. We have a core permanent staff, which in fact is challenging because it means we have a very substantial salary bill, which, if we're not working, mounts enormously very quickly. So it's in a way a dangerous model, ours, in the context of this industry, because if you're not continually at work, you're in deep trouble. And I think, I think a lot of people get contracts and they think, God, that's a lot of money. Now, the thing is that Bomb, for example, turns over vast amounts of money. And I think, I suspect that people look at Bomb and think, gosh, those people must be balling it, they must be really rich. And it's not like that. I mean, the truth is that, well, one of our failures is that we are completely, as a business, is that we're completely obsessive about our product. So when it would make sense to say, it's fine as it is, we go back in and we change things, and all of which cost us money. So, I mean, there are many things about Bomb which are sort of bad business principles, basically. But I think it is what makes us who we are. And it means that we have this kind of core of creative people that have worked together for a long time. And it means that, invariably, our product, I think, benefits from the fact that we care. And all of us, there's not, normally there'll be the business person that will say, no, you can't do that. But Desiree is the worst of us. I mean, she's the person that will say, at the end of the day, when we've, got the fine cut and everything, she's going to say, hey, don't you think we should reshoot that scene? And of course she's right, and of course it makes no commercial sense, but it helps the product. Yeah. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. I hope you're leaning producer. So, co-host, before we jump on Shakailembe Banter, do you want to ask another one?
Yes, I just have a question. Since we're talking about business, I wanted to know in terms of the business side, contracts, stuff like that. So we're up and coming filmmakers as well, trying to get somewhere in this industry. What is something that you do not compromise with in terms of when you get that contract, you're looking through it as a business? What's one thing where you say, I'm not compromising with this particular thing?
Well, we don't compromise on delivery to whoever has contracted us. We deliver. And we, if it means working 24 hours and through the weekends and through the nights, we deliver. So that we don't compromise on. I mean, I've never worked at the high end of budgets, I suppose, in the sense, if you were to compare what we do with an American product, for example. So even on iLembe, which has, in the context of a South African film or an enormous budget, it feels full of compromise to me, in the sense, and it's largely to do with time. The thing I most want is time. You know what? I want time to craft a scene. And, with the pressures of a budget, on telenovelas, people are shooting, 22 minutes a day, which, for me is unthinkable. I kind of, I don't have the ability to do that. And I have great admiration for the people that do. But there's a fundamental compromise in everything you do when you're working at that speed. So what I'm saying to you is that, a compromise does feel like it's there all the time. The things that we spend an enormous amount of time on, for example, on iLembe, we spend an enormous amount of time on casting. And we always have. Right from Yizo-Yizo, we look everywhere for our cast. We look in the most unexpected places. We don't simply go to a casting director and say, "Will you cast this?" We kind of scour the world for who we believe is the right cast, and a cast that excites us in a way. I want to, in a project, think, God, I'm excited about the energies that go on here. So casting, we always spend huge amounts of time on, and quite often we will be shooting and we're still looking for a particular cast member, because we haven't been satisfied with the thousands that we've seen already. On iLembe, we have the luxury, or I don't know, we somehow at BOMB, I've been given the luxury of a lot of time in the post. So in post-production, I have real time and I have wonderful editors. It feels like there's no compromise in the post, but each sort of after the first season, we said, let's work with a much smaller crew so that we can afford to work a little longer. But in fact, the crew was incredible. I loved every single person on that crew. But in fact got bigger in the second season. And now we're looking at the third season and we're saying the same thing. We're saying, let's make it smaller, let's make it smaller. And then, you speak to the makeup department and they look at you and they say, well, what do we do when we have 500 people coming in, and how can we do it with so then of course the crew gets bigger and bigger. If the notion of a bigger budget, it's not like I want more explosions or fancier sets or anything. What I want is time. That's time to be able to not just get the scene, but then to explore the scene with the actors and think, what's another way of looking at the scene, and that's the thing we do compromise on, and I wish that we didn't have to.
Yeah, so Shakailembe season 2 is coming out this week, and
So on
Sunday.
the 15th,
Monday, Sunday,
which is this Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, and from season 1, my favorite character obviously was Thembinkosi, Udingiswayo, always running. So now we're looking forward to this, and I'm asking myself, who's gonna draw me to season 2, because it's no longer running anymore. And he was my favorite character. And I have a feeling he's gonna die.
Why do you think he's going to die?
I don't
Have you read some history somewhere?
No, I just have a feeling he's gonna
a
die.
feeling.
And I have a feeling Zude is gonna rise. It's played by Wise Man.
Yeah.
Yes. So like, what can we expect? What's gonna draw people into season 2?
Well, in season 2, there are new characters. I think it's quite an extraordinary arc. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I think it's it's an extraordinary narrative with extraordinary set piece scenes. There's a lot of tragedy in this season. I mean, people die. So in fact, episode 10, I watched it and I thought, I don't think I've ever watched an episode on television with as many tears as there are and as many men crying, basically, as there are in episode 10 of the season. But the other thing is that, everything is bigger in the season. The battles are, the armies are bigger, the battles are bigger, which, it's great, but that's not really what interests me are the characters. And then there are small characters that are sort of completely magical. So, for example, Shaka's Insila, who you meet in episode 1. And if you know your history, you know what happens with that guy. But I'm not going to. I'll leave it to you to find out the history. But he's a almost non-verbal, but quite an extraordinary presence through the series. As a crew and as a cast, we all completely were drawn to this character that virtually had no lines whatsoever. In the first season, Ija, for example, Abdul's character, I think he probably had 2 lines in the season, whatever, but he was a very present being, and a wonderful character. I think it's a solid season. So, but you'll tell me.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll have another interview
Yeah.
to tell you,
So-
to let you know.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned earlier that you spend a lot of time on casting.
Yeah.
So for season 2, what was a surprisingly tough person to cast? I know there's some people returning, stuff like that, but which one was a difficult person where you were even shooting and it was a tough find?
We always struggle with our romantic leads.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Across the board with Bomb we have. We did the season 1. And sometimes it's because we're just not finding the character. Balega in season 1, we had an enormous amount of indecision about who to cast, and we were shooting, and we were still. Tim Nkosi was coming in and again to do more and more chemistry interviews. Auditions, and Hope eventually we went with, and who was great. But Amanda Siome was the other candidate for that role. Well, she was one of the strong candidates, and we eventually decided not to go with her. And when it got to season 2, there was this role that felt just so perfect for her. and I think all of us, including herself, felt, thank goodness she didn't play Baleka, because she's so right for the role that she has in season 2, which is a daughter of Desireé's, that has a very lurid and fabulous story, which I won't tell you more about. Yeah. I mean, sometimes, we have more than, we think, oh God, I want to use this actor, I want to use that actor. There are many actors that from season 1 we've wanted to use, and somehow they haven't slotted in. And you think, it's ridiculous that this actor is not in Shakailembe, but so it is.
Cause I realize time is running out, Banga. Before we jump into games, just wanna ask one question. So I realized that from, I'm not sure, Red Ink, Zeno Peterson was directing, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And then also in Shakailembe, there's some episode where he's directing. Yeah. So I just wanna understand how does it work, because most of the time he was like a director of photography, and then now it just keeps on coming up on top. How does it work? How do you work with the crew on set, and how's the atmosphere? And this is a crew with a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a particular attribute of Zeno's is that he has an extraordinarily good relationship with the crew. I think he understands the needs of each department. And so, people love working with him. And actors as well. He has a spirit that kind of really works for him, and works for us. So, I mean, himself, there are four directors on this season, and it's not like, we kind of put our names on the episodes, but it's not like those are watertight. I mean, I have my name on, I think, the first 3 episodes, but I'm sure there are scenes there that are probably the best scenes in the episode that I haven't directed, that Adze has directed, or Zeno has directed, whatever. So, and quite, on Zeno's episodes, it lands up that I've directed some of his stuff. So we kind of, there's not much ego around that either. We allow each other space, and we help each other out. And so for example, Adze, and we fundamentally don't have enough time for our big action sequences. And Adze is the guy that manages to get his head around the action sequences and get through them. Whereas I'm sort of full of indecision. I have to take longer. So, given those sort of sequences, I say to Adze, you take that kind of thing. So I mean, in episode 2, which ostensibly is my episode, there's a war, and I mean, the action in that war is very much directed by Adze, together with our very talented stunt coordinator, or stunt, I don't know what you call these people, but Cabello, yeah.
Ghost, let's jump straight into games, man. The time is running out.
Games.
Okay, yes. This is
Where
what
they like
Mzansi Scope does. We just relax the guest out to play some nice trivia games, and then we
Oh my
can
God.
send them home.
Where the lucky charms.
Yeah, we're the lucky charms. Everyone
So,
calls us that.
Okay, I don't think of myself as a games person, but you can try.
We'll try. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
We'll test the waters. Okay, so the first game is called Film Quotes. So this is from your own films that you've made, and I'm gonna read out a quote. Then you have to decide
Where it's from.
where it's from.
Oh my
basically.
God.
That is the game, right? Okay, cool. So the first question is. Okay, so the first question is.
Question or quote?
It is a quote. So the first quote is the greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but in rising every time you fall. Which film featuring Nelson Mandela is this quote from? A. Mandela, Son of Africa, Father of a Nation. B. Invictus. C. Long Walk to Freedom. D. Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom.
Bugger. I have no idea. So I mean, let me take it as one of as from my own film. But I haven't watched that film in 15 years.
Wow.
Let me repeat it.
No, I don't. It won't help.
You wanted,
It won't
you
help.
wanted to repeat it in Nelson Mandela's voice?
Yeah. The thing is that I mean, when I did that film, I suppose Invictus hadn't been made. I had watched every single possible interview with him, you name it, I had seen it. So of course, in retrospect, everything becomes scrambled. And I think, and there are like 15 cuts on, that documentary started out as 4 hours long. And then eventually they decided they wanted to do a cinema release and it had to be 90 minutes. So it was like we threw out an enormous amount of material. So in fact, and then I have this thing where I never ever watch stuff that I've made. So I haven't watched Yizo-Yizo in many, many years. I don't look back. I sort of look forward. So
we should have raised the stakes on the game.
yeah.
We get something if you get it
Read
wrong.
it again.
Okay, so it says the greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but rising every time we fall.
I don't think that's mine.
That is definitely yours.
Oh, is it? Does it? Is it? When did he say it?
I don't even know, but
Come
definitely
on.
from you.
Our producer cooked this for
Our
you.
producer. Lovely question.
It feels, it feels very coherent. Yeah, okay, there you go.
Okay, let's try this
I'll
one.
have to watch that film again.
Let's try this. Let's try this, right?
Yes, so the answer is A. Mandela, Son of Africa, Father of the Nation.
Okay.
Oh. Okay, so we have another one. These are your three favorite movies, right? Chinatown, The Godfather, and Midnight Cowboy, right? Kill one,
That's what you mentioned on the podcast.
remake one, and watch one forever.
Kill one.
Yes.
And to never watch it again.
Yes.
And then remake one, and then watch one forever.
It's a tough one.
No, that's a nasty one. Okay. The easiest one to kill is Midnight Cowboy, simply because I somehow don't have access to it. And I watch The Godfather again and again and again.
Same.
So it's going to have to be The Godfather, and I'll remake Chinatown.
And kill Midnight Cowboy.
Yeah.
And I kill Midnight Cowboy, which is a terrible, terrible thing to kill. But I mean, if you ask me today what my favorite films are, I mean, Midnight Cowboy would, Chinatown and Godfather definitely. I could say Casablanca is or Boogie Nights, or or Pulp Fiction, or it's like, I think it's, you have to say name 3 of your 100 favorite films is a better question. Yeah.
Okay, so I realized that we're running out of time. So, Coast, can you just have
The
one hot
last
question?
This is the last
Then
one.
see, because we didn't even get to talk about like the near future project which you're working on. I really wanted us to talk about that, but I guess we will have to visit again to talk about that one.
So we're coming again.
We're coming back.
It's looking like I'm gonna make it. So yeah.
So this is the last one. This is like a very serious, heavy question. So here it is. Multi-choice. So is Mzansi Scope invited to the premiere of Shakailembe? A, yes. B, yes. C, no. D, yes. I don't know. You can just you can pick your answer.
Well, if you haven't been invited already, it's C.
We haven't been.
Have you been invited? Oh my goodness. So do you know that half our crew are not invited?
No.
Half our actors are not invited.
That's crazy.
It's a terrible thing because because they're 600 seats or whatever, and 150 go to MTN and 150 go to Spur or whatever, and we're left with the dregs, and so there's this negotiation, and like everybody's saying, people say, can't I bring you a +1? We say, no, you can't. It's like, so I'm afraid if Mzansi had invited you, I would have been very happy to see you there, but why don't you go as press or something?
That's what we actually wanted to go.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to come as
But I'm sure you can
as
find a way
press.
in as press.
Yeah, we should find a way.
I mean, in terms of, what the ones that we, obviously our loyalty is to our crew that worked
Right.
all that time. I want them to be able to see it, and I feel badly that there are people that won't be there. But Mnet have, they want journalists there, so come along, come as journalists.
Producer, you writing?
There you go, producer. Yeah, rise to the occasion. Yeah.
Nah, it's fine. If we don't come for this one, Season 3 will be there from the first day of shoot until the end and still go to the premiere and then everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, cause let's wrap.
Okay, am I doing the outro?
Yes.
Okay. Oh yes, just any words to young filmmakers, just to finish off. People who are starting out, people like us trying to venture out.
Do what you're doing, make things, whatever, and don't be afraid to fail. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Yeah, that Jenny.
And that's it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. That is Mzansi Scope with Mr. Angus Gibson himself. Thank you so much for joining us. That's it, guys. Please remember to like, subscribe, and tune in, comment, like, share, all of those things. That's it from us. Ghost, do you want to show Mr. Angus Gibson how to do it?
Yes, Mr. Angus. So this is how we
Yes.
close our shows,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
We got this from Youngins.
Yes, so we'll do like a Dutch tilt.
Dutch tilt, and then we'll say Shakailembe.
Yes. So it'll be like.
Okay, together.
Yes,
All
we'll
right.
do it at the same time.
Okay.
So 3, 2, 1.
Shakailembe.
Shakailembe. Guys, thank you so much.
I'll stop at the grave. Now I'm on a wave. Focus on brave. Walk like a slave. Tripping and falling, but I stand all day. Sipping while plotting how I walk my way. Back to the hustle. Never gonna crumble.